Director of Black in Appalachia. We've been doing this work for, this is the 11th year, and we started out as a project with East Tennessee PBS, and do everything that we can to kind of document and make available Black narratives in the Mountain South. And we do that through a lot of different ways. We have podcasts, which is probably the most popular thing that we ever did. Dr. Nkechi Alameen is the one that produces that. But I'm going to get right into it. Normally I'll talk about my family and I'll kind of set everything up, but I want to get right into the content of this presentation. And we say the Appalachia region, which is 13 states and 420 counties, and technically we do some work in Pittsburgh, we did some work in Birmingham, northern Mississippi, but really the lighter areas there, that's actually technically where we work at. Eastern Kentucky, Southwest Virginia, Southern West Virginia, Western North Carolina, and East Tennessee. So that's day to day, that's kind of what we do our work at. So school records, and so talk about our work. One of the things that we realized early on was the value in Black school records. Number one, they span oftentimes across census data years, and so the census is every 10 years, and these school records can cut across those decades to provide some additional information in between those decades. There's two primary types of school records that we've worked with digitizing and making available. One is the school registration cards. You'll see there, Middlesboro, Kentucky, Lincoln School registration cards, and school registers, which are books. And both of these things provide super valuable information about the Black communities that they come from. The Middlesboro records are a little bit unique because they have photographs on them, and some of them you can watch when the young people come into the school, and you can watch them grow up and, until they graduate, which is kind of cool. So talking a little bit, just kind of set this up, the kind of framework about Black primary schools in the region. There's several different types of entities over the years that have participated in the setting up and funding of Black schools, primary schools in particular. Right after emancipation, the Freedmen's Bureau was the governmental bureau that was responsible for funding and setting up some Black schools in the region. Black churches often filled in the gap there when the Freedmen's Bureau didn't do what they said that they were going to do. Also, Northern White Presbyterian and Methodist missions played a huge role in setting up Black schools in this region. And this is a little quote that I found in Negro Education, a study of the private and higher schools for colored people. This is from 1917 from the Department of Interior. That second quote is particularly honest, and I like the self-reflectiveness of it. It's not necessarily a healthy outlook, but it says the Northerners who came down here to teach Negroes were ignorant of our past, of our conditions, of the underlying causes of our new antagonism to the Negroes, our new antagonism. They made blunders, of course, and the many good Negro acquired some knowledge at the expense of more wisdom. And certainly the South never tried to help the situation. So far as explanations or assistance went, we maintained a silence which was more than felt. All these from another world came in and wrestled with our problems in a good faith and according to their darkness in their life. I think very rarely, especially in 1917, do you get such honesty. Other entities that set up Black primary schools, Catholics, which I'll talk about in a little bit, Mennonites, which people don't equate with Black schools necessarily. In Western North Carolina, there were at least 4 Black Mennonite missions set up around Boone, North Carolina, Carter County, Tennessee, Avery County, North Carolina. And so, yeah, they also set up schools. And then there's kind of these 3 major funds that communities could source from: the Slater Fund, the Jeans Fund, and the Rosenwald Fund, which is probably the most well-known school fund. And you guys have a Rosenwald event coming up later this month. The Genes Fund is particularly interested in the school records because they went around and took photographs. And so sometimes in these very rural schools, you'll get photographs of, and I'll show you some of those later. So the Genes Fund would submit these photographs to the state educational departments of education, and so we have some of those, which is really helpful. And then ultimately, and eventually, city and county governments did what they were supposed to do and started funding and maintaining black schools before desegregation. All right, everyone okay? I'll go sleep after eating that chicken and dumplings. I'm going to talk a little bit about somebody, Daisy Bradley Titus, who set up a school called Freedom School. The little checkered place, that's where we're at. That's Madison County, and the red county there is Hawkins County. There's going to be a lot of maps. I like maps, so there's going to be a lot of maps in this presentation. Daisy Bradley Titus was from Hawkins County, Tennessee, and she, by 1920, she was teaching. And 1922, by 1914 she started teaching. And she had basically set up this Freedom School in very rural Hawkins County, Tennessee, and on her own volition, and she called it Freedom School, and she was working to develop it as a place where students could come and stay at the school, and from around the surrounding county. But in 1922, for some reason, she married a Mr. William Albert Titus from Berea. And he was a farmer, and he's associated with the Titus family. I'm not sure exactly how, but he was a farmer, and they got married in 1922 in Lee County, Virginia, which is about halfway. And they stayed married the whole time that she continued to set up this school. He continued to farm in Madison County. She continued to teach school in Hawkins County, Tennessee. So it was very odd. You'd see newspaper clippings where they would go and visit each other. Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand how they made that work, but they apparently made it work. So I talked about some of the entities that helped set up schools. Daisy Titus's school was set up or helped, after she got it set up, was funded by Save the Children Fund or the Save the Children Federation, which had all kinds of projects all over the South, particularly in Appalachia. And it was one of those entities that would kind of take pictures of kids with dirty faces and then use that to raise money, you know, and be like, oh, look at the poor Appalachian kids, give us some money for the schools. Well, they had one black school that they funded, and it was Daisy's school in rural East Tennessee. So she set this school up as a Save the Children Federation demonstration school. So she wanted to make it an industrial school for kids. She had already set it up where the kids could stay there. There was a separate kitchen where the kids could help prepare the meals. And according to some of the people from that community, she was successful. So it was a boarding school that she ran until about 1950. And you can see here, this is the State of Tennessee Department of Education report that she filed. And she said, the school is located in Clinch Mountain. I live at the school and care for 7 children who would not have the advantage of an education were it not for my interest in them. I would like to make this an industrial school for the Negro children of Clinch Mountain. I have an extra house of 4 rooms, well equipped. I wish I could be used for demonstration work. Children living in this house and learning to do by doing. Our supervisor has checked over our grounds and building, and they could make an ideal industrial school for neglected children. My supervisor is very much interested in helping work out a plan for the school. And so she did that. It was a functioning school. There's tales of there was a white school down the road, and there's tales of the black students going up and playing with the white children, but then at lunchtime they had to go back. They couldn't eat, it's not allowed, they couldn't eat lunch together, so they had to go back to their school and eat lunch. Miss Daisy Titus continued to teach there, and she eventually is listed in 1950 as separated from her husband in Berea, but then she comes back to Berea, and this is where she passes away in the 1960s. So figure that out, love. Makes you do crazy things. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Carter County, Tennessee. Here's a little note about the Freedmen's Bureau agent Herman Bookham, who's a really interesting character. He was a German immigrant that came over in the 1820s, and then when the Civil War broke out, he left the South, and then he came back after the end of the Civil War and worked for the Freedmen's Bureau and helped set up black schools. Highly educated man. And here's a note that he left about the black schools in Carter County, Tennessee. 3 leading colored men, and he met with them. It was Bethan, William Smith, Rufus Taylor, and Emmanuel Tipton. At the meeting, Bookham learned that there was a torched schoolhouse outside of town, and the classes the three people held out in the woods. So that's 1867. All of those people, William Smith, Rufus Taylor, and Emmanuel Tipton, were formerly enslaved. And they were successful. They were successful in setting up schools. So I talked about these enrollment cards, and that's Alana Norwood, a Berea College graduate, that started working with us as we were trying to figure out how to digitize and make these school records available. We started out in Elizabethton City Schools, and really, we call it making friends. Like oftentimes people in these buildings don't even know what records they have, and so you've got to kind of go and make friends with them and let them know exactly what you're doing and why you're wanting to do it. Alana's really good at that. Sometimes I think I put people off a little bit, so she got in there and could make friends. But one of the things that we realized with these enrollment cards was that there is additional information. It's not just a list of students from the school, but there's information about the parents' occupation. There's information about the address where the student lived at. There's information about where the student migrated from. So if they had come from another school, that was included in the records. And when we did this first tiny set of records, we realized, oh, like this is mappable data. And so we goofed around with the maps and were able to map out not only people's occupation and economy that they operated in, but where did they migrate into the school from. And so this is a little map. And this is available on the Black and Appalachia website too, if you want to look around at it. So for us, it's very valuable information to be able to show, a lot of times we talk about out migration, but this is a way to talk about in migration, like how do black folks get to these very rural communities. And because of these, we went to the state, so we scanned these cards and we're like, okay, let's go to the state of Tennessee and see what records we can find. Well, there weren't any information about these schools that fed into Douglas School. And so we knew from the records, from those cards, that there were other black schools, primary schools, that were feeding into this Douglas School in Elizabethton. And so we knew we weren't crazy. It's there on black and white. But the state of Tennessee didn't have any information. Nobody else had any information, but what we did was we went from Elizabethton City Schools to Carter County Schools, and lo and behold, thanks to Alana's diplomacy, we got access to scan in these school records, and they're there, and we were able to scan those in and make those available online and transcribe them for people to search. And so it's literally, I know sometimes it's a little corny, but it is the way to make the invisible visible. I think we overuse that sometimes, but this was actually a way to do that. And after we digitized those records and put them out into the world, people started contacting us. The library in Carter County is like, oh, hey, by the way, we have this clipping of Otago Colored School, which was in these records. And so more information after we published them started coming in. And so now it's like this school that was really hard to even prove that it existed. Now we've got photos, and you can see the school, you can see the students. And in particular, we're going to talk a little bit about one of the teachers. Miss Virginia Bridwell Silver. You can see her sitting there. She was born in 1916 and in Washington County, Tennessee, in Jonesboro. She went to Langston High School, which if you guys are ever in Johnson City, go to the Langston Center. It's the refurbished black school turned into a cultural center. She went to Langston High School in Johnson City, and then she went to A&I, which is Tennessee A&I, which is now TSU there, and where she got her teaching degree. All of her folks were workers, like blue-collar workers. And so her dad was the janitor at the courthouse for his entire career. Her brother worked on the road construction crew, and her husband worked as a bellhop in the local hotel. She worked as an educator at Watauga School from 1949 to 1956 until the school was discontinued. She helped to transport kids to and from the school, and she also participated in the multiracial organization of Carter County Elementary Principals Association. In 1964, she was the principal of the black school in Jonesboro in her hometown, Booker T. Washington, which is now the McKinney Center, which is also an arts space. In 1976, she served on an 11 county, 2 state health services committee with mayors and county officials. Her career, as you can see there, survived desegregation, and she taught social studies at David Crockett High School in her hometown. So that's 1979 there. Oftentimes our black teachers would lose their jobs after desegregation, and so, but Miss Silvers was nice. Y'all doing okay? All right, okay. If y'all have any questions or anything or comments, feel free to hop in and let me know. I'm going to talk a little bit about Miss Josephine Bowers. She taught at Rock Mountain Colored School, which is also in Carter County. So this is another one of those records that we were able to find afterwards. You can see there her educational career is listed in the school register. She went to Livingston College, which is HBCU in Salisbury, North Carolina. Went to Hartford Seminary and A&I State College in Nashville, or TSU. She was the only teacher for Roan Mountain School. She was born in Rhode Island and raised in Worcester, Massachusetts. Worcester. Before moving down south, she was educated, as I said before, at those colleges. She would eventually marry a Mr. George Otis Bowers, a local Carter County man, and he was also a graduate of Livingston College, so it makes me wonder if that's not where they met at. She started her teaching career in Wilson County, Tennessee, over to Nashville, and then she came over to Roan Mountain. So that this school, there was a law passed to amend the statute that said the school had to have more than 10 or more pupils, and because of this school and the state level representative, they allowed this very tiny school to continue to exist in Roan Mountain of 6 students. So at the time, 1952, it was the smallest school in the state of Tennessee, legally. But it was a community of less than 300 citizens, as you can see there. But in reading her notes in the school register, she was doing some really amazing kind of praxis curriculum work with the students that I feel like is like, man, this is 1952. So she did this. She would lay out like some of her exercises she did, and this is just an example of one. She did this one exercise with the students that one of the objectives was to provide the pupils the opportunity of interpreting their own community. This was done through the dramatization of community needs around the small town. And so this is the smallest school in the state of Tennessee, and this woman in 1952 was developing like these things, and I mean, there's educators here, right? So you know like what she was doing. And so, yeah, good old Miss Bowers. We talked a little bit about Shuns Chapel in the far corner of Mountain City, Tennessee, Johnson County, Tennessee. And to belie the title of my presentation, it's not a one-room schoolhouse, it's a two-room schoolhouse. And that's what it looked like then, and this is what it looks like now. It's still standing. There's a line at the end. And Dr. Nkechi Aline that hosts our podcast. Did any of y'all have a Laura in class, or do y'all remember Laura?
I do.
Do you know that she is quite the trespasser? She has no qualms about trespassing and going into buildings that she shouldn't.
It's the Berea way, it's good trouble.
I know how happy she is. She's so delighted. And it, like it says, no trespassing there. But the school's still there, and I bring up this school because I just wanted to show you a clip, and that Lee Waters shot in 1941. He went around, 1940, went around and shot film of all these different rural communities, and most of these films are but what we do is we'll download them and then just take the black people and the black people in the village. I don't know. But anyways, this is Shows Mountain School actually. I think that's good. All right, let's go to Pennington Gap, Virginia. This is the home right now of the Appalachian African American Cultural Center in Pennington Gap, ran by Ron Carson, founded by Ron Carson and his wife, Jim Carson, his late wife. This one-room schoolhouse was funded by this woman, Rachel Scott. She was not an educator, but she was a businesswoman. We think that there's some indication that she may have been from a free family from Claiborne County, Tennessee, but that's kind of speculation. But nevertheless, she was a very prosperous businesswoman in Pennington Gap, Virginia. She cut hair, she cut white folks' hair. She wasn't allowed to cut white folks' hair. But she made a lot of money doing that. She had a boarding house, and she's the one that spent her money to make sure that the black kids in Pennington Gap, Lee County, Virginia, had a nice school. And that building is still there, and it's a cultural center, so if you ever want to go see it, this is the last class before desegregation. Ron Carson is in there somewhere, but I could not remember where he's at. But Ron Carson is a descendant of Rachel, and it's really cool to see his passion for carrying on his ancestors' legacy by maintaining the school. Yeah, the only black school in Lee County, Virginia. Here's another different example I wanted to touch on, Fleming Neon in Letcher County, Kentucky. There's Fleming Neon. We're in Kentucky now. This is Brother Steve Peak, who preaches, or did preach at Corinth Baptist Church in Fleming Neon. This church was built in a coal camp, and it wasn't a church, it was a school originally for the black students. And Brother Pete told me that the first teachers to the Fleming Neon Black School were nuns from Jenkins, Kentucky, which is across the mountains. So This is an instance where the county and the coal companies pay to have a school built, and then the Catholic nuns from one town over come over and are the teachers for the school, which is something I've never heard before. But there was one black teacher, Maddie W. Jackson. She was married to Stonewall Jackson, not the same one, but she was the only black teacher for Fleming Colored School. She was from Georgia, and she attended Jackson State, and she taught at the school from 1945 until 1965. She made $240 per month from the county in 1952. In 1959, 1960 school year, she made $3,020 in salary for the whole year. So 1959, 1960. Here's a clipping I found about the school, how somebody was apparently enraged about the amount of money spent to build the one-room colored school in Fleming. The $25,000 could have been better spent. That school could have been constructed for $8,000, he said. So he was upset about it. Because it didn't seem, anyway. We talked a little bit about Lincoln Park Negro School in Burnsville, North Carolina, which is this community has been terribly impacted by hurricanes. So I had learned about this Miss Cinda Ann Rowland, in doing research about Western North Carolina's kind of desegregation policies. And I saw this picture, and I'll let you guys kind of read it, but she's a 21-year-old teacher. She's sitting in what would be condemned schoolhouse that was provided by the county, and there's no students there. And so I read this, I was like, oh man, I feel kind of bad for her. There's 26 pupils that didn't show up as a tactic to pressure the county to desegregate the schools. And the more I started researching, she was in on it. So she came, sat, and then the newspaper came, took pictures of her. So she was part of the tactic. And actually, so there's the organizing body, the residents and the preacher that had organized with the lawyers to push the issue of school integration in Yancey County. And these are the young people that left Yancey County and went to Allen High School in Asheville, North Carolina. So they went all the way, that's a drive today to go from Burnsville to Asheville. Interestingly enough, so they went to Asheville to go to school. That's where Cinda Rowland went to school, not too many years previously. She attended Allen High School, and she was on the debate team. She had participated in plays. She attended St. Augustine College and HBCU in Raleigh, North Carolina, where she continued to act in plays. But after this, so in 1968, she married a Mr. Santini and moved to New York. And by the 90s, she was living in Las Vegas and had divorced that man. So this is an instance where I read the original story and then come to find out, like, it wasn't as sad as I thought it was originally. The Yancey County did a terrible job with the school integration, you couldn't tell. All right, how long time? Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about Agnes Harrell, who's, we're back in Hancock County, Tennessee. This was a photograph taken by the Jeans School Fund that was made available to the Tennessee Department of Education. But I've actually found where we had digitized her high school record from Millsboro, Lincoln School in Millsboro. You can see there that she graduated in 1937 at the age of 20 from high school. She, her father, George Harrell, worked as a coal miner and a farmer. And you can see there, she lived with a Miss Willis Brooks. The Brooks were her neighbors back home in Martins Creek and Hancock County. So you can see people with familiar networks and connections people were utilizing to get their kids on education. She got a 2-year degree. There used to be a historically black college in Rogersville, Tennessee called Swift Memorial Institute. And so she got her 2-year teaching degree from Swift College. Then in 1941, this is her 1941 class here in Martins Creek. The next year she married Theodore George Tye, a Kentucky man. Y'all, if anybody does research in Kentucky, East Kentucky, you know the Tye name is a so she married Theo George Tye. He also attended Lincoln School in Middlesboro, so maybe that's where they met. He worked at the post office and as a mail carrier. They eventually moved to Akron, Ohio, where she stayed and passed away at the age of 93. She remained a Baptist in the denomination, which is what she started out as in Martins Creek in Hancock County. Just kind of give you a context about Martins Creek. This is USGS historic topographical mapper. I highly recommend it if you're looking for schools that no longer exist, or churches that no longer exist, or cemeteries. USGS historic topographical mapper. You can click on a point and then scroll through topographical maps over time. So it's really, and it's free. It's online. So you can see there Martins Creek School and then Martins Creek Church, and there's a cemetery there. As well, and oftentimes you can find those kind of formations in rural black communities. You have the church, you have the school, you have the cemetery, which is kind of the basic cultural, social, and spiritual infrastructure. But you can see how close Martins Creek was to Lee County, Virginia, and the other red dot over there on the map, that's Young County, Kentucky. So you can see in this community, maybe the state lines don't mean as much. Even though Miss Harrell left, T.R. Delaney took over the school. This is a more Gene School Fund photographs. This is T.R. Delaney, who taught at several schools in Hancock County. That's him with his class. I found a note where they made a new sign, and there's a photograph of the new sign. T.R. Delaney was really good about putting stuff going on in the school and the newspaper. And you can see here, depending on what the source was, it was called Martins Creek or it's called Ewing. And so but it's the same community. Ewing was the Virginia side, Martins Creek was the Tennessee side. One of the more interesting things is in 1940, Martins Creek presented a Thanksgiving program, Kidnap Grandma, Thanksgiving Dream. But you can see that they did regular programs, even having people come from Knoxville all the way out to Martins Creek to do singings and performances. All right, I'm almost wrapping this up. So one of the things that we did recently is we worked with the Alumni Association to digitize the graduation photographs from Morristown College, which is a late HBCU in my hometown of Morristown, Tennessee. And immediately it's the same thing, like you see, like, oh, like this, we can cross-reference this information with other things that we have. And knowing that Morristown College produced so many teachers, now it's like super nerd, like we can cross-reference these photographs with what we have in this digitized school records, right? And it works. So Miss Gladys Kirk taught at Bulls Gap, which is close by to where I live at. And through internet stalking, I had a conversation with her granddaughter, and I was able to send her this picture and her grandmother's school records. But she gave me information. Miss Gladys Kirk, favorite color was purple. Her favorite number was 3. She had in this graduation picture, she had already had a son out of wedlock. But she went on and got her degree. The next year she's teaching at Bulls Gap, one schoolhouse, and she's living probably now it's 45-minute drive. Who knows how long it took her in the 1930s and 40s to get to school. But she would ferry kids to and from school. And she played the piano. She was very involved in church. She loved to teach Sunday school, and she loved to travel. And so eventually, she married Joe. Oh man, I'm gonna forget Joe's name. I forgot Joe's name. She married a man from Chunky, Tennessee, who just got back from the military, and he was looking sharp in his uniform. And they ran off and moved to Florida. And then she traveled around with this army man, the love of her life, and she passed away in Sacramento, recently. So another instance here of cross-referencing those records is Miss Gretchen Stewart, who married a Bundy, married a Sam Bundy. She graduated from Morristown College and went on to teach Buffalo one-room schoolhouse in Carter County, Tennessee. She, after graduating from Morristown College, she went on to TSU, or A&I State College. She also attended some classes at ETSU, East Tennessee State University. She was a member of West Market Street Methodist Church. She taught at Douglas School in Elizabethton in 1940. She also taught at Dunbar School in 1948, 1953, and 1955. She had a poem published. Y'all want to hear a poem? Okay. It's called Why Is It? When you stand pat, when you know you're right, about a little ragged chap who would be bridle. If he had a square meal and a pat and a hug, you're called an emotionalist. When you tell the truth and the next one lies, he's the one who's believed and you're the one who's lied. You're called an emotionalist. You treat each one as you ought to do, that you have no pets but all to you. Look the same and you treat each one so, you're called an emotionalist. You can see some good in the worst you know, and you not only see, but you tell them so, and you work so hard to develop that good, you're called an emotionalist. When you see perchance a Lincoln, Jackson, a Roosevelt, and someone the world has badly dealt, many a knock as the world can sometimes do, you just try to help, you're called an emotionalist. While our heads will bow and telephones ring, when you put your soul in the things you do, and over the wires the message will ring that you know it all, and yes, they'll scandalize you and call you an emotionalist. I wonder when this world you are through, you reach that place called heaven beyond the blue, and God takes down that judgment book, fingers the pages, and with a look, he'll say, you are an emotionalist. Miss Gretchen Stewart Bundy, Johnson City, Tennessee, 1949. And with that, I'm just going to show you some clips and some work ahead that I would like to do and help support. This is Thornhill Colored School in Grainger County, Tennessee. And that building is still there. I think it's on private land, so it's a good chance that it's still there. It's Saunders Chapel School, also in Hawkins County, Tennessee. And that building, I went and checked on that building yesterday, and it's still there. So I think there is some hope to try to preserve a couple of these buildings that are still left, at least in East Tennessee. So that's what I hope to do. Black in Appalachia is on blackinAppalachia.org. We're on all the social medias. Unfortunately, we're also on TikTok, and our community history database is blackinAppalachia.amica.net. You can find all our stuff. Everything that we do, we produce and put out for free in the world. And this is the email address for shoot me an email. And you can also email Precious Carol, who works with Black. That's it. That's a wrap.